Tyler Hoover here, host of Barrett-Jackson's live TV coverage on history and FYI, and Barrett-Jackson's resident oddball, which is probably why they invited me out here to list Barrett-Jackson's most oddball cars to sell at Houston in 2021. We'll start with lot 434, a 1966 Sunbeam Tiger, which we all know from the Get Smart series when they were painted in bright red. This one was in plum crazy purple, but there's a few other odd features about it. Take a look.
Calling Maxwell Smart, your car is here. It's a 66 Sunbeam Tiger.
Well, this is a real one. There's a thing called the Sunbeam Tiger Owners Association. This has been verified. Keep in mind, there was also a thing called the Sunbeam Alpine, which had a little four-cylinder engine. Otherwise, largely a similar car, at least to look at. But I'm not so high on this purple paint. Otherwise, it's a pretty good presentation.
Yeah, there's actually been a number of modifications. Inside, it's been modified inside. It's got that purple paint on the outside. I don't know, my gut says if I had a Sunbeam Tiger, I'd want it to look pretty close to the way it did. And, of course, I think I'd really want it to be red like Maxwell Smart's. And, you know, the interesting story, as Mike was mentioning, Carroll Shelby was involved. Carroll Shelby's big goal, of course, was to get the contract to produce these in California. However, ultimately, they decided to do it at the Roots factory in England. He got a royalty out of it, but not quite as much money as he thought he could get with the contract.
While this one has a 289, a lot of these also had 260 cubic inch V8s, and while the Ford 9-inch and 8-inch rear axles were available to Roots, these have something called a Spicer Model 44, the Dana 44 rear axle, which is a pretty rugged piece.
Now here's the rub. The Roots Group was acquired by Chrysler, who didn't want a Ford V8 in their hot rod sports car. However, the Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge 273 or 318 or 340 would not fit in this. So it continued with a Ford 289, although the Ford name was nowhere to be found after Roots was purchased by Chrysler.
Well, that's right, Mike. One of the problems with the 273 is its center sump oil pan. The Ford 289 and 260 have a front sump pan, which is more suited to the Sunbeam's suspension and frame architecture.
Akin to the early Cobras.
Now, you could take an Alpine and turn it into a Tiger. All the parts are available, and that's why you want to sell this car after it's been tacked, checked by the Tiger Authentication Committee of the Sunbeam Tiger Owners Association, as this one has, to prove that it was born a real Tiger.
By the way, we mentioned the fact that this was being used as the car for Get Smart. The original Pilot, they used a Ferrari 250. They just couldn't afford to modify it during the course of the series.
$39,000 for a Sunbeam Tiger.
Up next is lot 47, a 2014 Can-Am Maverick 1000R. Now, these side-by-sides are usually well used and dirty, but this one was so clean you could literally eat off the underside, and it's probably why it set a record price.
And up there right now is something different, a 2014 Can-Am. This is a Maverick 1000R.
Well, this is a pretty advanced one, extremely advanced, in fact. This one has the 101 horsepower Rotax engine in the back, but this is also what we call a side-by-side, which is a design which kind of came into prominence around 2010, about 5 years before this one was built. But, I mean, this is as exotic as any four-wheel drive pickup truck. Four-wheel drive with independent suspension, CV joints front and rear, and did I say again, 101 horsepower.
Yeah, this was the factory hot rod. A lot of these were four-seaters. This was the two-seater, the high horsepower version. Good thing it has a full roll cage, because if you run this thing well up past 70 miles an hour, and it will do it, you may well test that. But these are great fun off-road in areas where they are approved and allowed to go. This is also the cleanest one I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, these are popular with military regimes all over the world, so it's just as good as in a military setting as it is in a fun setting. But again, here's the independent rear suspension with the incredible high lift, independent control arms, and you can see the CV joints, which are also known as constant velocity joints, which are located inside of here behind the rubber boot. And what they do is basically have a series of balls inside of a carrier which allow that extreme angle between the drive shaft and the hub. You could never pull that off of the U-joint.
Now, if you like your lawn, don't go on it with these tires. These Super ATV Terminators will tear up the grass in one pass. Don't ask me how I know. Ask my son.
You know, Can-Am started off building motocross dirt bikes. It was a division of Bombardier. They started off with that, and then they kind of transitioned into these. And of course, as you said, you know, this was the big dog with over 100 horsepower when it came out. It was really designed to battle the Arctic Cat and the Polaris, and that one just sold for $26,000. I think that makes it the number 2 sale of the day, behind a dune buggy that sold. So think about that. A dune buggy and a Can-Am off-roader are our top 2 sales of the day right now.
And speaking of off-roaders, Lot 40, a 1970 Volkswagen dune buggy, predates the side-by-side by many decades, but it brought a lot of attention up on the block because of its eye-catching color.
Up on the block now, it's a dune buggy, a 1970 Volkswagen.
Well, thanks to California hot rodder Bruce Myers, who created the Myers-Manx, anybody, anywhere could take an old Volkswagen, save the headlights, the signals, the tail lights, and the dashboard and the steering column and the running gear, throw the body away, and then splash mold one of these fiberglass bodies. This is not a Manx, but it could have been taken from one because the emblem's the same shape here. And you could bolt this fiberglass body onto a Volkswagen pan, and you could have yourself a cool car instead of a geek car.
The only detail that you had to do was one deal. You had to shorten the wheelbase. Volkswagens came with a 94-inch wheelbase, so it was up to you to cut those 14 inches out. And generally, that was where the passengers in the back would have put their feet. But again, shorten it down to 80 inches, and these bodies will fit right on. Now, this is fiberglass. A lot of people associate fiberglass with lightweight construction on super stock cars and stuff. But this stuff is pretty darn thick. It's got to be, it's that thick right here. So that's some pretty heavy gauge stuff, which is good. That's what you want. And the fiberglass here has done more for the convenience and the inexpensive nature of molding. Steel would be better, but again, fiberglass is quick and easy and durable.
Number 1 sale of the day, is it not?
Well, you think about it, very popular. You know, of course, Bruce Myers started the craze, and the one thing he didn't do effectively was patent and copyright the body. So as a result, everybody was copying these. And we sometimes talk about how the Cobra is the most copied car. I think ultimately it was the dune buggy that Bruce Myers came up with.
And here's that mighty Volkswagen Flat 4. A couple of carburetors on the ends. Of course, the standard Volkswagen would have had a single carburetor mounted on the top. So this is aftermarket. And of course, there's a couple of Weber 2-barrels. Set of headers on here. Glass pack style mufflers. So it was classic to take a Volkswagen engine with 36 horse, double it to 60 with minimal add-ons. And again, the power to weight ratio on this is pretty close to a Corvette, to be honest with you.
Now, back around 1970, when I was involved with a company that sold stereo tape players and dune buggies and convertible tops and upholstery, Aero Stereo Tape Town, Dan Yellen's company in West Hartford, Connecticut, and Outback Joe DeFazio and Lou Maloney were making dune buggies and selling them. And once you had the Volkswagen stripped, for under $1,000, you could turn it into one of these and turn a nice profit, and they did.
And have a lot of fun at the same time. And don't forget, remember the Thomas Crown affair with Steve McQueen? He's driving around on the sand with a dune buggy. That's another thing I think that ultimately made these even more popular around the country.
Nice and that was a Mayor's Manx. They brought it all the way to Marblehead, Mass. from California. That was Steve McQueen's own dune buggy, as written up in Matt Stone's book, McQueen's Machines.
Nice how the dune buggy gives an x-ray view of the underpinnings. We can see right here the torsion bar front suspension on the Volkswagen.
28 and 28,000. He's like, thank God. And 28 and 27 and 28,000 out of and 28,000 out of never felt so good to be the backup bidder. And 27 and 28 pound out of down 27 pound out of down through well done in 8 and a half. So for $27,000.
And we're still on an off-road kick here with Lot 109, a very unlikely overland vehicle modified candidate, a 2012 Mini Cooper Countryman custom SUV. Yes, I said SUV. They call it that even though it could fit in the back of a full-size pickup truck. But actually, it looked really cool in person.
Up on the block now, a 2012 Mini Cooper S, but this one's a Countryman custom SUV.
Well, the Countryman is the four-door station wagon type body style. I had a Mini Cooper S in college in 1964. When BMW brought back the Mini brand and the new Mini Cooper S in 2003, I had one and then another one and then another one. And then the Mini went to the Fat Farm, and this is the result. Now this one's been heavily customized. You get the look and all the fun in the Mini in a much more family-sized package.
Yeah, there's a thing called mission creep in the military and in the car industry, where something small, well, becomes something large. Something kind of neat about these two is the one-piece clamshell hood and fender unit. You don't open the hood, but the entire nose lifts to expose the engine.
This generation Mini still retains the central speedometer. It's big and it's right in the middle of the dash. Now, BMC did that on the original Mini back in 1959 so that they could use one dash for all the cars built anywhere in the world, whether they were right or left-hand drive. If you put the speedometer, the gauges, and the switches right in the middle, you didn't need different versions just to move the steering wheel to the other side.
Body shell on this is entirely made of steel. Again, the expense of aluminum wasn't justified on something that was essentially a lower-priced crossover vehicle. But as far as character goes, I can't think of any other crossover that has as much.
I mean, it's a Mini through and through. It has all the right styling cues. And here, just to show you that this was built by BMW. Remember the 650 we showed you earlier and how the trunk opened? Same song, second verse. There's the trunk latch, hidden in plain sight in the emblem on the trunk lid, or hatch lid in this case.
Like the dual exhaust system on this, again, since 1953-4 on Cadillacs, dual exhaust implies power, even though this has an inline engine, which doesn't really justify two banks of cylinders and two complete exhaust tracks, but it's the image that matters. You got to sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Well, we're sizzling to the point of $20,000. That's the current bid for this Mini that has 87,000 miles on the odometer.
Bike rack up on the roof here. You can load your favorite Mongoose or titanium bike, whatever it might be, head off into the woods and go for a ride. This has a massive sunroof, front and rear. In the old days, sunroofs were traditionally over the driver and passenger up front, but this one has sunroof front and rear. You can take a peek up through the roof, and there is the glass panel for a view of the side.
Well, I like your statement about mission creep, because people who like the Mini but had a family, yes, they'd be a lot more comfortable in this, even though it was no longer Mini-sized.
That's like the oxymoron. How do you call it a Mini when it's not? $24,500 up in the skybox. Congratulations to that gentleman right there for that custom Mini S Countryman.
Well, we're back on road now, but we're sticking to small cars with Lot 90, a 1958 Nash Metropolitan. And this one caught my eye because it was sitting at the end of what seemed like a quarter-mile long drag strip of red carpet that Barrett-Jackson had set up in the NRG Center. And, well, the Nash Metropolitan may not be the best drag strip car, but I certainly wanted to give it a run as it entered the staging lanes and onto the block.
This is a beautifully restored by Customs and Hot Rods of Andis. This 1958 Metropolitan is powered by a 1500cc four-cylinder engine and mated with a manual transmission. Beautiful custom pink and white interior with a new convertible top, all new brakes, all new wheel bearings, 1500cc four-cylinder engine. 21, 23, 21, 2, 21, 2,
The wheels are coming off now, quite literally, because it's a three-wheeled vehicle with lot 357, a 1957 BMW Isetta 300. These are certainly oddball cars, and one famous owner, Rick DeBrule, was very excited to see this thing cross the block.
Up on the block right now, we got a 1957 BMW Isetta 300. This is a car that April Rose previewed for us just a little while ago.
Well, it's beautiful. Keep in mind, these were manufactured with both 3 and 4 wheels, the majority of them in 4. And the beauty is there's no need for a differential at the rear because the wheels are only 10 inches apart, so they don't really scrub that badly.
Yeah, the three-wheelers essentially were just sold in England because for tax purposes they wanted it as a tricycle as opposed to a four-wheel drive. The interesting thing about this one is it was restored by a company called Izettas R Us in Georgia, and Izettas R Us is the part source. If you're looking for parts for an Isetta, that's the place where you want to go to. I have an Isetta, and trust me, I have them on. I have their website handy because all the parts. And the great thing is there are tons of parts available for restoring this. There's a very active community. In fact, there's a great Facebook group for people who want to restore and be a part of these, and everybody's always showing off the new pictures. I'll tell you what, looking at this one, this is one of the finest restorations I've seen in a really long time.
These were offered with 300, 400, I believe up to 600 cc's. How big is the engine in yours, Rick?
And it's now the number 5 seller on the day. Quality drives the bidding.
Yeah, and we can come around to the side. I'll show you where the engine is. The engine is right underneath this little panel right here. 1 cylinder, 13 horsepower, right there. There's a little air intake right there, not water-cooled, air-cooled. $42,000, that is a pretty solid sale.
We're keeping with the small car theme here with Lot 19, a 1969 Fiat 600D, and I actually had the opportunity to drive one of these a few years ago, and because I'm proportioned like Big Bird, I don't fit. But they are very, very fun to drive, and this one was a beautiful restoration in azure blue.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's lot number 19. Title is in transit. 1969 Fiat 600D 2-door sedan. All new azure blue paint, refurbished interior, all new exterior chrome, and upgraded alloy wheels. Now the car is powered by a 4-cylinder 767 cc engine. That's all mated to a 4-speed manual transmission. We are on lot number 19, 1969 Fiat 600D 2-door sedan.
The 1969 Fiat 600D.
Popular in Europe, rare in the U.S. Who would take a little car like this and give it fresh paint and fresh chrome? Somebody who wants to get at least $13,000 for it.
Indeed, these look like they might be front engine because, of course, we see a little faux radiator in the center right there, but rest assured, these are rear engine only. They're little 4-bangers located in the tail of this puppy. Now, the wheels on this are kind of cool. They are either real or replicas of a thing called a Mini-Lite wheel. And the original use of the Mini-Lite wheel was on Minis in England. Of course, they became so popular, they adopted them to other types of cars. But there's that 4-cylinder engine. Dig the plastic fan. Yes, this is liquid cooled. There's the radiator right there. This plastic fan is turned by the same belt that turns the generator. So a lot of efficiency in the design.
A whopping 747 cubic centimeters. What's that, about 40 cubic inches? Thereabout?
You know, I own the modern version of this. I have a smart car, which, you know, I like it. It's a Smart for 2, and it's basically the same basic notion as this, a city commuter car. Although you could maybe get this on the highway. The smart car, I can do 90 miles an hour on a mass bike for hours and hours if I want, but this puppy here probably limited to around 50 or 60 miles per hour.
You know, we don't see many 600s across the block, but we see them in a different variation. This was the foundation for the Fiat Jolly.
Moving through Europe here from Italy to France with Lot 359, a 1969 Citroen DS, and this is easily one of my favorites because I love Citroens. They're so cool looking, so quirky, and so comfortable, and that's why I did a preview during our live TV coverage in Houston. Take a look. Lot 359, a 1969 Citroen DS sedan. Now they're known for the iconic French shape, but mechanically they are really cool. They were designed to be, come back to the engine here, and there are a lot of cool touches. You can see the spare tire here is prominently in the front. It actually covers the radiator, but they put a little bag here going to the radiator so it has airflow. So these things were built for comfort primarily, hence the hydraulic suspension. You see the tank here and the two accumulator balls? That's for the hydraulic four-wheel independent suspension. Now, Rolls-Royce and Mercedes actually borrowed this system in their cars later, but Citroen started it. So comfortable, but my favorite part is definitely on the inside. You sit in these seats, and they're like a French lazy boy. Oh, see the crazy steering wheel here. There's so many cool touches with the Citroen. I just absolutely love these things.
This is a 1969 Citroen DS ID19. Now this one is called a Grand Route Sedan.
These were built between 1955 and 1975. Of course, they're French. They're very unconventional. I wish we could open the hood, but these have an inline four-cylinder engine, and it has a hemispherical combustion chamber. If you pop the hood, you can actually see 4 spark plug wires and caps. Something I dig about these things is the steering wheel. Very strange design with a single spoke. It looks like it's melting out of the center. I call it Mick Jagger's tongue in a way. But again, very unique. And these also have a hydropneumatic suspension. You could remove a wheel, jack the car up, and change that wheel without the need of a floor jack. The suspension's actually active on these things. Pretty cool.
Well, that single spoke steering wheel would make the gauges easier to see. Of course, there's nowhere to hook your thumbs. Well, your left hand, yes. Your right hand, no. And note where the tail lights go. Way up here, tail lights, turn signals, if you will, way up at the top where, of course, they're easier to see. That didn't catch on fast, did it?
In that 20-year run, there were 1.4 million of these built all over the planet. And of course, you got to remember the Maserati SM of 1972-3. That was a similar but very different car with that Maserati dual head cam 6-cylinder. But these are amazing cars. I spent a summer in Sweden back around 1979, and the family I stayed with had one of these. We drove it all around, and it was a fascinating little car.
And the ID, so this is a DS ID. The ID was actually kind of the cheaper range of the DS line. So, and DS, by the way, a little play on words. It's 2 letters, DS, but it really means DS as in the French word for goddess. They were kind of playing with things.
Very excellent use of space, very efficient. Here's the trunk, which is massive. And again, the hydro-pneumatic suspension has struts that really don't take up much room at all. So therefore, a nice low floor and tons of room in these things.
The only problem with this car is finding 2 bidders that want it, because that's the only way the price keeps going up. Takes 2 bidders to have an auction. I'm sure there's 1 person here that wants this car a lot. Are there 2?
Here's that crazy steering wheel with the single spoke. Again, the Rolling Stones' tongue comes to mind. I don't know why, but there it is. See it on pretty much all of them.
Somebody once described this body style as looking like it was just dropped from the sky and flattened out. I can kind of see that. $17,500.
Moving on to Germany now with Lot 332, a 1960 Porsche 108 Junior L tractor. Now this Porsche has a 0 to 60 of probably never, but it wasn't built for speed. It was built to farm, but there's only 1,000 of these supposedly brought into the U.S. This one I know nothing about. Being from Kansas, you think I'd know some things about tractors, but I don't. I do know this one was restored beautifully, just as nice as, say, a vintage Speedster. Take a look.
Lot number 332, sold on a bill of sale, 1960 Porsche 108 Junior L tractor. This 1960 108L comes finished in traditional red over cream-colored steel wheels with the matching seat. Robust and unique 822cc single-cylinder diesel engine, 4039H, paired with a 6-speed manual transmission, including reverse and a single-disc dry clutch. Here's lot number 332, 1960 Porsche 108 Junior L tractor. Pretty neat tractor here, TJ. Only about 1,000 Porsche tractors of all variants were sold new in the U.S. Here's one today for your offering, and it presents well in excellent restored condition. 2, 3, 4.
And now for the last but certainly not the least with lot 620, the belle of the ball here, a 1990 Yugo GVC convertible. Now these were the butt of endless jokes with comedians back in the day, and it was well deserved because most of them have turned into Yugoslavian dust by now, but this one is probably the nicest surviving one in existence. Only 370 miles was showing on the odometer, so basically like new, and I wanted it so bad because, like many cult classics now, it's just so bad that it's good. So I'm super jealous of whoever won this thing. Let's watch the bidding.
Lot number 620, 1990 Yugo GVC convertible. This yellow convertible with 370 miles, title reads miles exempt, is not often seen. In 1990 was the last year the Yugo was imported. Clean Carfax history. Here's on number 620.
So that's the countdown of the top unusual vehicles to sell at Barrett-Jackson, Houston. I'm Tyler Hoover, your unusual host. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like this video if you haven't already. A little button down there. Also subscribe to Barrett-Jackson, another button slightly bigger if you haven't yet. And be sure to tune in for more previews and top 10s right here on this box next to me. Click it.